Welcome to Gemara Academy. In this class, we'll present an overview of the Gemara in Masechta Shabbos from Daf Beis to Daf Hey. See, this is the general summary of the Gemara on the Mishnah. The purpose of this class is simply to see how the Gemara actually goes through things that are directly related to the Mishnah. So we had the Mishnah itself, and here we're just going to point out what the Gemara does that relates directly to the Mishnah. This gives us an appreciation how the whole idea of the Gemara is to explain the Mishnah. So the first part of the Gemara, we discussed the number of cases in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that there are a total of 8 cases. So the Gemara discussed why it is that we count 8 cases as opposed to possibly counting 4 cases of Yitzias, or 12 cases, or 16 cases. So there we have the first part of the Gemara is addressing the number of cases in the Mishnah. The next part of the Gemara gets into a detail in the Mishnah. The Mishnah is discussing when each individual is in a different rishus, and they're extending their hand into the other rishus to do the malacha of eitzah or achnasa. So the Gemara establishes that when a person is in one rishus and his hand is in another rishus, his hand is not considered at rest in that rishus. And in that Gemara we also explained that a person, when he and his body are in the same rishus, then he is considered at rest, and therefore the akira of a person's body counts as an akira for the item he's holding. So there we have the second part of the Gemara, the second piece that's related to the Mishnah. First we discussed a number of cases, then we moved on to speak about the specifics, which is when a person's hand is in another rishus, that it's not considered at rest in that rishus. The next piece of Gemara went on to explain that not only is the person's hand not considered at rest in the rishus it's extended into, it's not either considered at rest in the rishus that he's in. And in that Gemara we discussed a number of things. Number one is a question whether this extended hand is considered a karmelis. And we had a long discussion about that and presented 2 brises and various ways of understanding it. So we established that it's not like the rishus it's extended into, it's not like the rishus that he's in, and then we had a question whether it's considered a karmelis. We also discussed the question of Rav Bibi Bar Abaya when a person put bread in the oven on Shabbos. So let's just go through those 3 points again. The number of cases that the person's hand is not like the rishus it's extended into, it's not either like the rishus that he's currently in. Then the next piece we mentioned that a person's hand is considered as if it's 4 by 4 tefachim, and over there we had an extended discussion until we got to this explanation. But we established that a person's hand is considered like it's dalet al dalet, directly related to our Mishnah, that all the acts of carrying are either from or to a person's hand. And in that Gemara, we had a discussion of a person throws an item and he himself catches it. If he runs the 4 amas and catches the item, is it 2 distinct parts, or do we look at it as one carrying? And we also discussed over there whether things that are on water in various ways, whether directly on water or in a container on top of water, whether they're considered at rest or not. But back to the main point, which was that we mentioned that a person's hand is considered as if it's 4 by 4 tefachim. And the last and final point wasn't said directly in the context of our Mishnah, but it directly does relate to the discussion in our Mishnah, so it's put up in a more prominent place, and that is that it's necessary to have kavanah to do a malacha at the time of the akira. So here we can see how the Gemara directly relates to the Mishnah. First we discussed the number of cases. We moved on to explain that the person's hand that's in another rishus is not considered like that rishus. It's not either considered like the rishus that he's in, and we had a question whether it's like a karmelis. Then we explained that a person's hand is considered as if it's 4 by 4 tefachim. And the last and final part is we explained that in order for a person to be chayav for the malacha of eitzah or achnasa, it's necessary for him to have the kavanah to do the malacha at the time of the akira. So here this gives us an idea of how the Gemara directly relates and explains and completes the ideas that we learned in the Mishnah.